It was a peaceful day at SeaWorld San Diego, with the audience eagerly watching a show featuring two powerful orcas, Orchid and Splash. Suddenly, the routine performance turned into chaos. Without warning, the orcas turned aggressive, attacking their trainer, Tamarie Tollison, with terrifying force. Panic set in as the once trusted orcas displayed unexpected brutality. The audience was left in shock as the scene quickly shifted from entertainment to a desperate struggle for survival. For Tamari, her life would be changed forever. It was a typical summer day at SeaWorld San Diego on July 8, 2002, as thousands of visitors packed the park to witness the spectacular orca show. The sun glistened off the shimmering pool where the massive orcas, Orchid and Splash, were primed to perform their routine, a sequence of jumps, flips, and synchronized movements that had become the highlight of the day. For trainer Tamarie Tollison, it was just another performance in a long series of successful shows. She had worked with these orcas for years, forging a bond that had seemed unbreakable. She had always felt at home in the water. Her passion for marine animals had driven her to pursue a career at SeaWorld, and she had trained orcas for nearly a decade. On this particular day, Tamarie stood confidently by the poolside, ready to guide Orchid and Splash through their usual performance. The crowd roared with excitement as the orcas executed their perfectly timed jumps, splashing water into the air with every graceful leap. At first, everything seemed perfectly normal. Tamarie was leading the show as usual, signaling to Orchid and Splash with precise hand movements. The orcas responded as expected, displaying their remarkable agility and intelligence. The crowd cheered, oblivious to the growing tension just beneath the surface. For Tamarie, it was another seamless show, but her comfort would soon be shattered by an unanticipated shift in behavior. As the performance neared its final, the orcas began to act erratically. Orchid, typically calm and obedient, started swimming in tight circles around the pool. Splash, usually the more energetic of the two, seemed distracted and restless. She had seen such signs before, moments when the orcas were perhaps bored or disinterested, but they usually passed quickly. However, this time, something felt different. The signs of agitation were more pronounced, and she could sense that the orcas were no longer in the same playful mood. Then, in an instant, everything changed. As Tamarie approached the edge of the pool to engage with Splash, the orca suddenly lunged toward her. The trainer barely had time to react before Splash's massive body crashed into her, knocking her into the water. The force of the impact was overwhelming. In a panic, she tried to scramble to the surface, but Splash was already circling her, now more aggressive than ever. In an attempt to regain control, she swam toward the side of the pool, trying to pull herself out of the water, but the orcas weren't backing off. They'd followed her, their movements swift and decisive. The orcas seemed to be toying with her, their power evident in every move they made. Tamarie fought back the rising tide of fear, but she was outmatched by the sheer strength of the animals. By the time the other trainers rushed to the poolside, the damage had already been done. They acted quickly, shouting commands and using equipment to distract the orcas. It took several minutes to regain control of the situation, but eventually, the orcas were led away from Tamarie, who was quickly pulled to safety. Breathing heavily and shivering with shock, she was rushed to medical care. The physical injuries were severe, her leg had been badly bruised, and the impact of Splash's aggression had caused her significant trauma, leaving her with deep cuts and bruises. The attack was a wake-up call for SeaWorld and the broader marine animal industry. While the company had always maintained strict safety protocols, this incident raised serious questions about the ethics of orca captivity. Orcas, as apex predators, were no longer seen as mere performers in a show, but as wild, sentient beings whose behavior could not always be anticipated or controlled. In the days following the attack, experts and animal rights advocates weighed in on the incident. Many pointed to the psychological stress of captivity, as well as the unnatural environment in which orcas were forced to live, as contributing factors to the aggression. The incident reignited debates over the ethics of keeping such powerful creatures in captivity, especially when the inherent dangers of human-animal interaction were made so painfully clear. In interviews following the incident, she openly discussed the emotional toll the attack had taken on her, particularly how she had come to view the orcas as wild animals first, not entertainers. It started as a routine sailing trip off the coast of Galicia in June 2023. But what was meant to be a peaceful day on the water soon turned into a nightmare. The crew of the Arcturus Asterisk, a recreational sailboat, had no reason to suspect that anything could go wrong as they navigated the pristine waters of the Atlantic Ocean. The sky was clear, the wind was gentle, and the boat moved steadily through the waves. But within moments, that tranquil atmosphere would be shattered by a sudden and unexpected assault. A pod of orcas, known for their intelligence and raw power, approached the sailboat from behind with an almost eerie quietness. At first, the crew was unaware of their presence, thinking the distant splashes might be from dolphins. But when the orcas closed in, their intentions became unmistakably clear. The sleek black and white giants surged forward with alarming speed, targeting the Arcturus Asterisk with uncharacteristic aggression. The crew had no time to react before the first strike hit the rudder. The boat lurched violently as the orcas rammed into the rudder with a force that nearly knocked the crew off balance. Before they could regain their composure, the orcas circled, coming in for another pass. This time, their assault was focused on the hull, battering it with powerful thrusts from their bodies. The captain, in a state of controlled panic, ordered the crew to cut the engine and begin making noise. They used air horns and banged on the hull, hoping to frighten the orcas away, but the attack didn't stop. The orcas continued to charge, displaying a calculated aggression that left the crew feeling helpless and vulnerable. The boat's rudder was severely damaged, making it nearly impossible to steer. One crew member attempted to lower a sail to stabilize the boat, but the damage to the rudder made it nearly impossible to control. The orcas continued their relentless assault, leaving the crew with little option but to wait for help. The attack, which lasted for several tense minutes, felt like an eternity. Miraculously, the orcas eventually lost interest and swam away. The crew, exhausted and shaken, immediately called for help. A nearby fishing vessel responded to their distress signal and arrived on the scene, offering assistance. Despite the damage to the Arcturus Asterisk, the crew was unharmed, but the psychological toll of the experience was undeniable. In the days following the attack, the crew of the Arcturus Asterisk struggled to process the events. They spoke with local authorities and maritime safety experts, trying to understand what had provoked the orcas and how such an attack could be prevented in the future. While there were no definitive answers, the experts suggested that this kind of behavior could be related to several factors, including territoriality, frustration, or even the orcas' previous experiences with boats. The incident sparked a larger conversation in the maritime community about the increasing frequency of orca interactions with boats. Sailors along the Spanish and Portuguese coasts had reported similar attacks, with orcas targeting rudders, propellers, and hulls with increasing regularity. The Arcturus Asterisk attack was not an isolated incident but part of a disturbing trend that had left many sailors on edge. For the crew, the attack on the Arcturus Asterisk marked a turning point. It was no longer just a story about the majesty of orcas or the thrill of sailing. This was about survival. The orcas had reminded them of the inherent danger of the sea and the wild creatures that roamed it. What had been a routine sailing trip had become a stark reminder of how quickly nature could assert its dominance. Though no lives were lost, the event left an unforgettable mark on those who were there. The Arcturus Asterisk attack served as a wake-up call for the sailing community, forcing sailors to reconsider their relationship with the sea and the creatures that inhabit it. The crew would never again view orcas with the same awe. They had seen the darker side of these majestic animals, and it was a side that was not easily forgotten. In the quiet, serene waters off the coast of northwestern Spain, a group of sailors embarked on what they expected to be a peaceful voyage. The weather was clear, the sea calm, and the crew of the sailboat felt the familiar thrill of the open ocean beneath them. This part of the Atlantic was known for its beauty, but as the wind caught their sails and the boat sliced smoothly through the water, none of the crew could have anticipated the terrifying turn their journey was about to take. The crew was a tight-knit group of experienced sailors, accustomed to the ebb and flow of the sea. They had sailed these waters many times before, but this time the horizon would hold an unexpected and dangerous encounter. The day had begun as any other, peaceful, uneventful, and filled with the excitement of open water sailing. However, as the boat moved further out from the shore, something changed. The first signs of trouble came when a pod of orcas appeared off the starboard side, their massive dorsal fins slicing through the water with haunting precision. At first, the crew paid them little mind. Orcas, while powerful and majestic, were not uncommon in these waters. But then, without warning, the mood shifted. The orcas, now numbering 6, began to circle the sailboat. Their movements were synchronized, almost purposeful, as if they had targeted the boat for a specific reason. The crew watched in confusion and unease as the orcas moved closer, initially swimming alongside the boat before suddenly darting toward the rudder in a coordinated assault. The orcas attacked the rudder with violent force. The crew scrambled, attempting to regain control of the boat as the rudder was severely damaged, leaving them unable to steer or maneuver properly. Panic set in as the boat was left drifting, vulnerable to the whims of the sea and the unpredictable orcas. "We're under attack," shouted the captain, trying to keep calm, but the crew could hear the fear in his voice as the orcas continued their assault. The boat's rudder was now completely unresponsive. With no way to steer and the orcas relentlessly charging, it was only a matter of time before something worse happened. The crew's first instinct was to slow down and make noise, hoping the orcas would lose interest. They banged pots and pans, trying to create a racket that would disorient the animals, but the orcas did not back off. Instead, they appeared more determined, attacking the hull next. The crew's anxiety skyrocketed as they realized they were helpless. The waves began to grow, making it increasingly difficult to keep the boat steady as it was no longer able to steer clear of the orcas. With the rudder destroyed, the sailboat was at the mercy of the sea and the pod of orcas, which seemed to be in no hurry to leave. Desperation set in, and the crew activated their distress beacon, signaling for help from maritime authorities. As the orcas continued their relentless attack, the crew had no choice but to attempt to fortify the boat as best they could, barricading themselves below deck and awaiting rescue. The tension in the air was palpable, not just because of the immediate danger, but also because of the growing concern that they could be dealing with an entirely new phenomenon of orca behavior in the region. Hours passed as they waited for a rescue operation to arrive. The orcas, meanwhile, did not seem to tire. The crew observed through portholes as the pod took turns attacking, almost as if they were strategizing their assault. The boat's hull had sustained considerable damage, and a deep crack appeared in the side, letting in water and further complicating the situation. When maritime rescue teams finally arrived, the crew was in a state of shock and exhaustion. A complex operation ensued, with the authorities carefully approaching the damaged sailboat while trying to keep the orcas at bay. Despite their best efforts to remain calm and steady, one of the crew members sustained a serious injury during the operation. A slit while trying to secure the boat resulted in a broken leg, and the already fraught situation turned even more critical. The crew member was quickly airlifted to safety, but the ordeal was far from over. The rescue team managed to tow the boat to a nearby harbor, but the emotional toll of the incident was clear. The attack left deep psychological scars on the crew, who were still processing what had just happened. The fear, the chaos, and the overwhelming sense of vulnerability they felt were not easily forgotten. As the crew disembarked, the implications of the attack became more evident. Maritime authorities, already aware of the increasing frequency of orca interactions in these waters, launched an immediate investigation. They were no longer dealing with isolated incidents. Something had changed in the orca population off the coast of Spain and Portugal. The authorities have already been monitoring unusual patterns of orca behavior in the region, with reports of pod attacks on boats increasing over the last several years. The 2024 attack on the sailboat was just the latest and most violent in a series of incidents that had become impossible to ignore. The orcas were no longer just curious creatures swimming alongside boats. They were actively engaging with vessels in ways that suggested a level of aggression or territoriality that had not been seen before. If you enjoyed this video, watch our next one shown on screen.